This is a review and analysis of the book Promortalism by Gontlemang General Segolodi. Now, a heads up, the promortalism and antinatalism, which is espoused in this book, is not the traditional promortalism and antinatalism you may be thinking of. This is existential promortalism and existential antinatalism, which are the beliefs that procreation is illogical and that it is logical for any mortal living being to die as soon as possible, respectively. Um, but I'll just go chapter by chapter, and I'll really, this book has quite a few flaws, and I'll just be pointing those out. So the first chapter is something rather than nothing, and he's talking about numbers, infinite regress, and it's a pretty boring chapter. It's pretty bad. It just kind of sucks. But basically, he concludes that there is something rather than, his answer to the metaphysical question, why is there something rather than nothing? His answer is there's something rather than nothing because there has always been something, which, I agree with, and it's pretty, it's pretty reasonable. I just say that's true. Then his second chapter, it's actually pretty decent. It's about morality. It's called The Moral Delusion. So he talks about the is-ought problem, and he also talks about the ought problem. And the ought problem is basically when people add another ought to their syllogisms and stuff, and then you just get an infinite regress of ought claims. This has been known of before. He's not the first person to notice this. Like, if you look up infinite regress of ought claims, you can see that, people have pointed this issue out before. He's just the first one to call it the ought problem, but yeah. One weird thing he says in here is that, like, because of determinism, people deserve whatever happens to them in life, which is pretty stupid to say, because deserve is obviously rooted in morality, and he rejects morality. He says morality is a fictitious concept. Then he talks about people deserving anything. Deserve is obviously rooted in, morality. He could have just said, what happens to you must happen to you because of determinism, like it literally must happen. But no, he has to use the word deserve, and it's pretty stupid and contradictory, to be honest. He just has so much weird and illogical stuff in here, even though it's supposed to be all about logic. I feel that, like, quite a bit of this is illogical, to be honest. His third chapter is on simulation theory. And again, it's like, what are we doing? So we're at the third chapter. He's still not even... Well, the second chapter, I'll be fair. The second chapter is decent, and it is actually related to it, since existential promortalism is a moral nihilist philosophy. Of course, he should go into moral nihilism. But, like, the first chapter and the third chapter, come on, they're a fucking waste of time, really. Simulation theory, it's like, okay, I'm not even going to talk about what he said in this chapter. I didn't write any notes. I guess, well, he did state that, well, even if this is a simulation, it's still reality because, the simulation still exists within the base world, technically, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you didn't have to waste a chapter on this, because it's like, we're not going to debunk simulation theory. It is an unfalsifiable claim, but the thing is, it's asserted without evidence, so we can just dismiss it without evidence. You don't have to waste a chapter on this stuff, man. Like, really, what is this? And then his fourth chapter, now he's actually talking about existential antinatalism and existential promortalism. But first, he's talking about existentialism, and then he starts talking about existential nihilism. And he says he's critiquing existential nihilism. He's saying it's erroneous because he says there is an objective purpose to life, and that the purpose of life is to follow the laws of physics, And then he says the purpose of the laws of physics is to dictate how living and non-living things act. It's like, dude, there's no purpose to the laws of physics. Like, purpose implies there's some type of intention or design. And I mean, really, he does double down on this, because I've seen he made a video critiquing ethylism, and of course, he critiques the moral realist aspect in those videos, from what I remember. But he's like, well, actually, ethylists are wrong for rejecting intelligent design, and he says some babble about the universe being the pure physical manifestation of pure logic and intelligence. It's like, so he literally believes in a type of intelligent design. It's just like absurd, dude. It's fucking ridiculous. It's like, no, dude, this is just so stupid. But yeah, he says, okay, wait, yeah, he says, yeah, there's an objective purpose to life, so existential nihilism is wrong. And then also, wait a second, he also says that existential nihilists believe that literally nothing we do matters, but this is the opposite of the truth, because determinism means that literally everything we do matters. But I reject this notion, because what nothing matters means is, what people are saying when they say nothing matters is they're really saying that nothing is ultimately consequential. And then that's kind of just a factor claim. It's like, if you think billions of years from now, like billions of years in the future, will anything we have done, be consequential? And the obvious answer is no. And, it is better to say nothing is ultimately consequential rather than nothing matters, because if you say nothing matters, that implies a value judgment. Whereas if you say, like, okay, nothing is ultimately consequential given the ultimate fate of the universe, that's just a fact claim. There's no, like, it doesn't implicate a value judgment. But yeah, just saying that, like, everything matters because of causality and determinism it's not true, because that doesn't make things ultimately consequential. That doesn't give anything eternal consequences. Yeah, okay. And then we get to the actual let me yep, all right, let me yep, this is what happens when you don't edit videos. Just hold on a second. Okay, so here's where he actually espouses it. So in this chapter, he actually talks about it. So this is his forum post, where it's like, it's the same arguments he gives in the book, but they're, more simplified. They're not as in depth in the book. So for his first argument, which is weird, because this post that he posted on this forum, it's on writingforums.com. If you just look up Promortalism, Gontlemang General Segolodi, it'll come up. It'll be the writingforums.com post. But he calls the arguments different things. But for his first argument is argument from unnecessary complexity. He says that in the world there exist living things and non-living things, and living things do not add any value to the universe, because if they were to all go extinct, this would not result in any problems. A universe with life isn't in any way better than one which is lifeless. Life gives the universe unnecessary complexity, and so it is illogical to create or preserve it, as this is pointless. And this is what I noticed. It's like he said, and this is like literally, the next page. After he says existential nihilism is wrong, it's like, okay, but you're saying life adds no value to the universe, and it's like illogical to create or preserve life because it's pointless. So it's like you're critiquing existential nihilism, you're saying it's wrong, and then it's like he just goes back to existential nihilism anyway. Whatever, man, but that's pretty absurd. The second is called, for this one, he just says, this argument is, argument from a lack of purpose. It states that it is impossible to prove that a living organism must continue living or that it must create new life, since this would amount to a moral claim, and morality is a fictitious concept. As such, it is illogical to do something that you have no obligation to do. One could argue that there is no moral obligation to be dead either, so being dead is illogical. This is false because dead things do not exist anymore, and the characteristic of being logical or illogical cannot apply to them. Now, for this one, I wondered, he could have made this stronger. He could have, because for this argument, it's just like, oh, well, you have no moral obligation to continue living or to reproduce, which is true. But he could have, for this, he could have added like futility or an argument, or like he could have had it as another argument, like the futility of doing it. Like, okay, it's futile to continue living because you'll die anyway. Right. Emil Shirani once stated that since all life is futility, the most irrational decision, the most irrational thing must be the decision to exist. Right. So I mean, yeah, living your own life is futile, but reproducing is futile. Your bloodline's gonna go extinct. All life on Earth will go extinct. The sun is the Earth's gonna be too hot to be habitable in 1 billion years. People often talk about the sun exploding, 8 billion years from now, and then we all die. But we'll probably all be dead long prior to that. But it doesn't really matter when it happens. The point is, it does happen. So we're not actually, you're just delaying the inevitable, and that's not really. You could say that's illogical. I would say it is. I'd say it's more reasonable to embrace what is an inevitability. But yeah, his third argument is an argument from Universal Solution. He says, no life, no problems. No life, no problems. It states that every living thing has to solve problems. The word quote-unquote problems here is used in a general sense to refer to having desires. To have a desire simply means to want something. The nature of the desire doesn't matter. This argument states that it is illogical to create offspring who will have desires, since they did not need or want anything before they were born. It goes on to state that death is the most logical reaction to having any desires, because death gets rid of desires themselves. Consider, for example, the fact that we need to eat food to stay alive. Instead of dealing with your hunger by eating food, if you died instead, you would no longer need to eat food for good. On a larger scale, rather than governments spending large amounts of money and effort on agriculture, it would instead be a more sensible action to organize a total genocide to avoid the need for food production, or omnicide, to rid all life of needs and wants. Which is, yeah, this is similar to what Lanza says, how like goodness is the fulfillment of value. Lanza states in his videos that just as he sought to erase the non-base values and have no need for the happiness which results in their fulfillment, the solution to life must be to terminate his life, to have no need for the fulfillment of the base values. And the base values would just be, your base desires: eating food, drinking water, blah, 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 your need for stimulation. So yeah, it's his existential promortalism is similar to Eulovism, but it's not, the exact same thing, but they're pretty close. I think they're both better than traditional Ephilism because they both reject the fictitious concept of morality. Adam Lanza's videos are better than Gontlemang's book. But yeah, what was I going to say here? In the book, he actually uses, so for an example of, desire in life, he says, instead of dealing with your hunger by eating food, if you died instead, you would no longer need to eat for good. Yeah, and that's a good example. But in the book, he actually uses a worse example. He says, think of breathing. If you died, you wouldn't need to breathe at all. It's like, the food is a better example because eating food is actually an active thing. Breathing is entirely passive. We do it even when we're asleep. So mentioning something that is actually active, something which you actively have to do, is a better example. But yeah, I guess that's it. Overall, I'd give the book a 2 out of 5.